Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name's Emma. I'm on the community team here at Circle. I'm focused specifically on community education, and I am joined today by the wonderful Tom Ross. Tom is one of our Circle experts. He shares so many wonderful insights around community building and what he's seen from his own experience in our community in events like these. And he's also the founder of Learn Community, which is a community for community builders. So Tom has a really exciting, really wonderful session planned for us today. I think no matter what stage of the community building journey you're at, you'll get something from this session today. So with that, I will go ahead and I'll pass it over to Tom.
Thanks so much, Emma. Let me share my screen, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And if you're watching the replay, I hope you find it helpful too. Also, Emma, I think we have time for Q&A at the end, right?
Yeah, if you are game to do Q&A, I would love to do
I
that.
love Q&A. I would love to help as many people as possible.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions that come up during the session, feel free. I'll be doing my best to respond in the chat, but if you have anything specifically for Tom, sit tight on that question and we can get to it in our Q&A section at the end.
Amazing. Also, I can't see the chat while I'm sharing, Emma, so feel free to stop me and shout anything out if there's
For
anything
sure. I got it.
pertinent. Can everyone hopefully see the slide okay? Wonderful. That's a good start. Okay. Cool. So this workshop is all about how to build features and benefits that your community will love. And Emma, thank you for reaching out and suggesting this and helping organize it with me. So first of all, a little bit of background. I am the founder and CEO at Design Cuts, which is a marketplace for designers. We recently crossed 1 million members, which is exciting. So that is my main business, but it's also far beyond just an e-commerce business. It is community led. So everything we've done from day one has kind of been all about the community. It's been our secret sauce. It helped us kind of break through initially and so on. So yeah, I love running that business. But as Emma said, I also run Learn Community, a community for community builders. I wrote a community book. I consult community. I do workshops like this. Basically, I'm just a big old community geek. I love this stuff. And I love joining people like you to really dive in. So yeah, I am here to help. I want this to be the most valuable session possible. I want to help as many people with your questions at the end. Whatever you need, I'm here to serve all of you today. So let's get right into it. First of all, before you think about community features and benefits, you need to try and answer these fundamental questions. Who does your community serve? And what value does it give those people? You really have to start there, because if you're not clear on that, you're going to struggle to kind of conceive really compelling features and benefits, right? You need clarity on these things. So this can definitely be a whole workshop in and of itself. But maybe let me know in the comments, do you feel clear on this? Or better yet, comment who are your members? Who are you serving? And what value do you think your community brings them? And I'll give you a little example here. So at Learn Community, our who is community builders, just like you. And our what is that we provide support and resources to help people either launch or grow their online community. So we're pretty clear on our who and our what. And the reason why I'm sharing this is, again, because it helps inform everything that follows. So your community value will inform your features and benefits. I'm just going to pause for a second, and I want to check out any comments that are coming in. So yeah, do take a moment, because this is I want this to be quite interactive. So who is your community serving, and what value are you trying to bring these people? David says we serve corporate refugees. Cool. And I'd love to know what's the value that you're trying to bring those people. And I can see a few people typing. So I know this can be a hard question. Don't worry if you haven't got the perfect wording lined up or anything like that. Sally says we work with clients who have worked with us on psycho-educational evaluations. Awesome. And again, it would be really good to understand, the what. What are you helping those people with within the community sessions and so on? David says we help them start, run it, and grow their own businesses, so they can do more of what they love and get paid what they're worth. Love that, David. Glenda says I'm serving spiritual mamas, guiding and supporting their children as spiritual beings, and the value is connection and resources for both mamas and kiddos. Amazing. We got real estate agents, teach them how to value and sell businesses. This is what I love about Circle, right? There's so many varied communities. Amazing. Yeah, keep them coming. I'm trying to read through as many as I can, but these sound great. So it sounds like a lot of you kind of know who you're serving and what value you're trying to bring those people. So let's get into the next steps. How do you cook up some great features and benefits based on this? Well, in doing this workshop, I was kind of coming up with all the different features and benefits that I've looked at. And I was like, these really seem to fall under 4 main categories, these 4 pillars of value. So there is the type of features and benefits that help your members, the type that inspire them to take action, the type that educates them, helps them learn something, and the type that are going to help them connect with each other, with other members in your community. And you can get almost all features and benefits to kind of fit nicely into at least one of these 4 groups, if not multiple groups. So let's start with help. Again, what features and benefits allow members to get the help they need? And I hope everyone's feeling like, woken up. If not, let's do a little stretch. Let's get the blood flowing. And I would love to see, you all typing it in the chat as we go here. What are some best guesses? Features and benefits that members can use to get help. What do we think? Before I reveal a couple of answers and ideas here. Q&A, AMA, love it, Clarence. Yeah, Q&A forum, says Rusty. Oh, good to see you, Rusty, by the way. Yeah, some great answers so far. Webinars with experts, special guests. Awesome. Yeah, I guess in a Q&A capacity as well, like we're going to do at the end. Absolutely. Get some direct help. Workshops. Cool. So I think some of the ones being given are potentially more the learn bucket, but we're gonna break this down. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just a few examples. I think in terms of members getting direct help, you can have a space or spaces for questions and answers. So they can post if they need help with something, if they got a question about something, and get the answers they need from you and their fellow members. Office hours. I know Circle do this in their community. We do it in Learn community. I love a regular office hour call because you can just jump on and literally serve people for that hour and answer as many questions as you possibly can. And also things like reviews and critiques. This is something a lot of people don't think about. I don't think I saw this in the chat, but I love if there's a space where people can, share their work. So I have this in Learn community. It's like share your community and get a critique, but also at Design Cuts, we use Circle for our community there. And there is a space where people will post their creative work and they will get feedback and critiques on that as well. So they're share and be like, what do you think? So they get direct help in that way too. So next we got action. What features and benefits help encourage members to take action? It's going to prompt them to do something. And this is a little bit harder maybe to think about, but let me know in the chat. What do you think? In fact, I'm gonna prompt you to take action. Put it in the chat. Very meta. Sandra, yeah, challenges. Pretty sure you're going to see that on the next slide. Competition, rewards, polls, sharing a resource, post your goals. Yeah, loving these guys. So exactly right. Action is this kind of stuff. So we got challenges, and the cadence is up to you. You can have a weekly challenge, monthly challenge, quarterly challenge, sprints. This is something pretty cool. So I don't have sprints currently, but I'm in Jay Klaus's community. And I think he has like a monthly sprint, which is cool because it's almost like a cohort of people, you all work to achieve the same goal. It could be like, I'm going to launch an email list or something like that. That might be a sprint for 1 month. Progress logs. This is something I shared in the Circle community, and I think it's logged somewhere how I set that up. But I had a space where people can literally update their progress log and post what they're working on, and it would go to the top of that space group. And competitions, that's a really good one. It's like an incentivized way to encourage people to take action. So a challenge, I mean, it's kind of semantics, right? So Clarence asks, what's the difference between a sprint and a challenge? They can be quite similar, but honestly, a challenge could be something that was perhaps more short-lived. So often a challenge will be like, go do X, and participate. Whereas for me, a sprint is something where it could be over the course of 4 weeks. Perhaps I've seen, even though that's like, the notion of a sprint is very quick, it could be something like that, where it's like, we're just going to focus for February on like working together to achieve this goal. Whereas a challenge, we have a member who runs one of the biggest bass forums, and one of their challenges might be like, submit a cover of this song. It's kind of more immediate way to be part of that. And goals and progress, I love this one. I'm going to do a live demo of the different types of value we have in our community to show you these things in action. But goals and progress is like absolutely one of my favorites. I think it's really good for accountability and people getting inspired by each other's goals. Learning, this is always a pretty fun one, but what features and benefits help members to learn? And again, hopefully we're getting into the rhythm now. Some great comments so far. What do we think? Mastermind, that's an interesting one. Yeah, breakout rooms, classes, videos, absolutely, Sally. What does everyone else think? Assignments, and you can see how some of these overlap, right? Yeah, Emma says resources, templates, how-to guides. Love all of those. In fact, I think you included some that I didn't, Emma. So yes, templates is such a great one. Some of these overlap though, right? Because it could be something that people learn from, but it also inspires them to take action, and that's fine. You can kind of combine these different pillars of value. But yeah, this was just like a few ideas. Please add on top of this some other ones from the chat. But a video library, Circle have a really great one. We have one in Learn Community. It can be a really powerful thing to have all these videos organized and stored. A knowledge base as well. So again, I'll demo this at the end, but we've kind of done it like a learning pathway, so you can literally work through things in a sequence. And that's been really, one of the hubs of value in our community. Courses, Circle launch courses. I love Circle for that. I'm working on our flagship course right now, our community course. But yeah, love that you can now incorporate courses into your Circle community. And then workshops. A few of you mentioned this in the chat, but these can be really fun to play with. So, I've done workshops like this where I will be the host, but also we've increasingly got into member-led workshops, which have been amazing. Like, I highly encourage you to give the microphone to your members more. Like, every time we let members host something, it blows me away how good it is. And they always talk about stuff that I wouldn't have thought of. And then hybrid as well. This is a new series, which again, I'll demo live at the end, but we started doing community showcases where I just thought it would be interesting for members to show off their communities and what they're doing particularly well in them. So our kind of like co-host, like our kind of half interview, half just keep them company so they don't have to do all the talking, but we will co-present this and they will talk us through their community. And that's been like unbelievably well received, which has been great. And then the final one, connection. What features and benefits help members to connect with one another? What do we think? And Sandra on the previous learning point said posting your podcast episodes. Yeah, I think that's really cool as well, like repurpose content and organize it in the community. Mastermind, yes, love that. Small groups, Clarence says yes, 100%. One-on-one introductions. You guys are on fire. I'm pretty impressed. Sometimes I do these workshops and it's like pretty silent in the chat, but yeah, really, really good answers. So let's go to the next one. There's quite a few here, right? And I'm sure there's many more than I've included, but we've got connection calls. So we will do live events like this one, where basically it's nothing to do with community building. The only purpose is to get to know each other and build relationships. So we will have icebreakers. We've gone into breakout rooms and had like really deep questions we've worked through. And everyone comes out of the call being like, oh, wow, I feel like, I really connected with these people. I got to know them as people. I built a depth of relationship I didn't have before, because before it was kind of more about business and less about the personal. So again, top tip, if you don't have one, try and just set up one like trial, but do a connection call and jump on with your members and just make it fun and personal. You'd be surprised how popular they can be and how much people enjoy them. Off-topic chat, you might want to have a space where people can, chat about stuff that isn't the core value of your community, and they maybe just want to get to know each other. Facilitation of one-on-ones, someone mentioned that for sure. I think being a good facilitator is the role of every community manager or community leader. It's so important. Always look for those opportunities. If you have two members that you think would really hit it off or bring value to each other, you should be reaching out and do a group DM and introduce them. It's so powerful to do that on a regular basis. Like I say, just for fun events. So our connection calls are quite deep, but equally you could have stuff that was more like entertaining or silly, or like just do some fun kind of challenge. And I often think of work teams as a form of community. I think they have all the hallmarks of a great community. And for example, our team at work, we have our Christmas party, we have retreats and stuff just like the Circle team. But we also have digital get-togethers. So because we're remote and we're all over the country, like on Friday, we had a huge quiz. We're doing like a version of Family Fortunes with the team. Like, this stuff has nothing to do about work, but everything to do with connection. Emotional support, this can be a big thing. So again, we try and create spaces and encourage areas where members can reach out and just like support each other. It doesn't always have to be technical, like how do I integrate this automation with my community or something. It could be like, like I'm really burnt out, or I have a real mindset block with this particular thing, and people help them work through it. Masterminds, a few of you mentioned. These can be great. We haven't introduced them yet, but I've been part of masterminds and part of communities that do them. Definitely a powerful way to kind of build connection in smaller groups. You can do this with one-on-ones as well. So you could set up accountability buddies and pair people up. That can be really powerful. You can have groups with similar interests. So I'm a huge fan of leveraging tagging and data, and I think we do this pretty well in our community, which means that I can then go do a group DM and be like, hey, like, you 6 people are building a community in the same sector. I thought I'd loop you into a group DM. Like, maybe you can talk, and feel free to, leave this group if you don't want to. But it kind of kickstarts that group conversation. And then the final one is deal flow and access to networks. And what I mean by this is like a great cherry on top. If you ever join a community and the community leader is so invested in your success that they start saying like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to my contact to like help progress your career, whatever it might be. That can be incredibly powerful. So you can actually connect with people outside of the community just by the leader facilitating it or other members making intros. So that's kind of an overview of the 4 pillars. I can see you guys knew like a ton of these and thought of some great ideas in addition, but really feel free to like watch the replay or screenshot these. I'm going to go through them one more time. You don't have to do all of these, but maybe there's 1 or 2 you're not doing or you hadn't thought about doing, and you can just cherry pick them and think about how to bring them into your community. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly again. And then we've got action. Maybe there's 1 or 2 here you're interested in. Learning and connection. Got a Emma, do you mind if I do like some Q&A as we go here?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So Trish says, when you group people with similar interests, how do you do that? How do you create a space just for them where they can post? She said, do you create a space just for them where they can post? Do you charge them for this? Do you join the group? You can do it just with group DMs. To be honest, that's like a really simple, accessible way. So I'll look at member tags and just shoot a DM to like 7 people and be like, hey, thought you should talk. You've got a similar interest. Like, you'd be surprised how that little prompt they might not have done by themselves, but when you set that up, it can lead to some amazing conversations. So how do you validate what your community will love? Because we got a bunch of different ideas here, but if you've seen any of my content before, you will know that I am a huge fan of validation, which basically means like proving that people want something before you do it. So let's get into how to do that. You should validate by looking for patterns in unprompted member requests. So what I mean by that is, are members continually coming to you and saying, we really want this thing, please can you build this thing? That's a really good sign. So if you're not even suggesting it, and again and again and again they come to you about this idea, this thing they want, it's a pretty good indicator that they're actually going to want to use it. One-on-one conversations with members. So, you should not just be setting up your community as like an empty vessel that people are going to float around in. You should be talking to them. And, as well as being active in our forums, my DM inbox is like constantly pretty busy because I'm having one-on-one conversations. I'm getting to know members. And that's really powerful because it provides a place that you can just like share ideas or listen to what they're working through. And that might trigger ideas. And you can say, hey, it seems like you're stuck with this. If I built this feature or benefit, like, would that interest you? And you can just sneak it in. Often I will use live calls like this one in our community. And maybe at the end, I'll be like, by the way, I'm kind of toying with this idea. What do you think? And the power of that is you don't just get like quantitative responses. So it's not like, oh, 3 people put their hand up and said they're interested. You can actually see the reaction because you can see if people get excited. And sometimes I'm like, by the way, I'm thinking about this. And everyone's like, yeah, I guess I'd use that. So even though they kind of affirmed that they weren't enthusiastic. Whereas sometimes I'll say an idea and like every person, their eyes light up and they're like, yes, like please build that. And they get visibly excited. I'm like, interesting. Okay, maybe that's an idea I should explore. And then of course, leverage surveys as well. So I think, really, really powerful to send out periodic surveys to your members. And I'm going to break down how to do this well in just a second. So yeah, here we go. Survey tip. What most people do is, hey, do you want this new feature? And most people then respond like, yeah, sure, I'd love that. And it's not a fair representation of the demand because most people will just say yes because it's easy. You've kind of been quite leading in your question. Do you want this? Most people will be like, yeah, sure. So a different approach is try and come up with like 3 to 5 feature ideas. So maybe you take 3 to 5 from those previous slides. And then in the survey, you basically say, pick the one you want most. Or you could say, pick any that interest you and have like multiple choice. And by doing this, you will get hard data on which are most in demand. Because most of them will get at least a few votes, but there will be 1 or 2 that like clearly stand out as the most popular. And it's like, cool, start there. And I used to make this mistake all the time. I would always be like, hey, are you interested in this? And then I'd wonder why it didn't work out. But this voting thing has like really, really created more traction in the features and benefits that I've actually gone on to implement. In terms of volume, like I say, most decent ideas will get a level of approval from your members. It's pretty rare that members will turn around and be like, nah, that's a stupid idea. I want nothing to do with it. Like they'll generally be like, yeah, I like the sound of that. So instead of just, going based on people approving it, try and think about a volume of approval that would make this thing feel validated to you. So for example, you could say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this new series or this new event as part of this community. If you're interested, like register to be part of it via this form. Could be like a quick Google form or something. And then you could have your own internal thing, or you could tell them and say, I'm only going to build this if 20 people register interest. And that's a huge difference because, it's very easy for members to be like, yeah, sure. But if members are like actively signing up or like putting in a bit more work, or you can just see there's a ton of them being really, really vocal about this thing, again, it's a better indicator. So try and actually think about the volume of members applying because it will be different. If you do this several times throughout the year and ask them, some ideas might get 10 times the level of interest as others. Again, it's a pretty clear indicator which of those is going to go on to be successful.
Tom, we have a question here from Noelle, and she's asking if you have a focus group of members, or if there are like priority members you go to specifically for feedback?
It's a really good idea. You certainly can. To be honest, I tend to just extend it to everyone. So I'm very like, I guess we have our regulars on live events, so often I will kind of run stuff by them first because I enjoy that live feedback, and often we'll discuss it in real time and I can like flesh out the idea. So yes, in that sense I do. But when I am like sharing it in the announcement section or I'm sending out a survey, I just send it to everyone because I don't want to miss anyone out. Often there's people that might not be like really active members or part of a core focus group, but they're still valid, right? I still want to serve them. They may be a little quieter, but still really benefit from that feature. So yeah, that tends to be my approach. But good question. Thank you, Noel. And as I say here, you can validate until the cows come home, but actually the only real validation is uptake. So often you'll go through all of this work and, certainly it increases your chances of success. But I've launched, several features and benefits, and I was sure it was going to work, and it just struggles to find traction with my members. I'll be like, damn it. And I'll say to them, I'll be like, you told me you wanted this, and I went and built it for you, and you didn't use it. But it's just the way it goes sometimes. And you have to realize that's normal. So don't beat yourself up if not every single feature and benefit gets used. That's natural. So what can you do about that? Well, my approach tends to be this. So I will do initial validation through these things I've said. I'll do it in multiple different ways. So it won't just be like one question. Like I say, I might do a survey and an announcement and discuss it on live calls. I'll try and sufficiently validate it. Then I will test it. So I will launch the thing, I'll announce it, and I will see the response. And then based on the response, I will either keep it and tweak it and improve it over time, or I will remove it. And what will happen sometimes is I'll launch it and it's like crickets. And I'm like, damn, that didn't work out. Other times it might launch with a bang, be super popular, and then fizzle out and have no longevity. And then other times, it might start a little bit slow, but show promise and build over time and go on to be really popular. But whatever happens, I'm going to do one of these two things. I'm either going to keep it and improve it, or I'm going to cut it. And I have cut plenty of features. And these are, things that were good ideas. Maybe they were very popular at one point. But yeah, here's four, and I'll share why. So weekly challenges, very popular when we first launched, but they were too much. Maybe we're going to do monthly in future, but like it was too hard for me to think of them every single week, so they felt rushed. Members just became apathetic because there was too many of them. They told me they were like feeling pressured to keep up doing a new challenge every single week, and they just didn't feel right in the end. Progress logs, again, these were popular for a time, but I think some of the mechanisms of how they worked, I just didn't love them because the whole point was for them to have visibility, and because they were happening in the comments, they got a bit buried, and therefore members didn't get the support and cheerleading that I hoped from other members. So we pivoted, and now we've got a goals and progress space, which I love, and it's working out much better. So often you can take something that kind of worked but fell flat, cut it, and then try it again in a different format. Deep dives. These were where I was helping members essentially with like one-on-one coaching on the call, and other people could attend and watch that live. And the members loved it who were getting the help, but attendance was relatively small. And I've seen, deep dives and hot seats and variations of this in communities, and that tends to be how they play out. So whilst I loved these, I was like, there's got to be a different way to like, connect with members, empower members, and help more people. So we started doing quite recently this community showcase idea. And I'm like, this is even better because like we're getting the insights into members' communities, but they're way more popular. One of the most popular things we've done, and people are finding them super helpful. So again, it was like a better variation on a failed idea. And then weekly workshops. This was, pretty popular. But if you can imagine, I was putting together a workshop like this every single week, and I was burning out. Like I didn't have time. It was really, really hard. So it wasn't that the members didn't like it. It's just, it was unsustainable for me. And you need to think like it has to work for both sides. So your features and benefits are not just about endlessly serving your members and destroying yourself in the process. You need a sustainable cadence. So, with this, now we actually have a richer and fuller and busier event schedule, but we have more member-led events, we have more AMAs, we have more community showcases. And these things I generally don't have to do a huge amount of preparation for, but they're more inclusive, they involve our members more, and people love them. So it's kind of best of both worlds. Tammy, I'm going to actually demo some of my community at the end. So I'll show you in depth like how some of this stuff works in practice. But do remember, what works for one community, including mine, may not work for another. So you should not look at my community when I demo it and be like, I'm just going to copy that and do all the same features and benefits. These have been engineered and iterated to serve our members. They're based on their feedback, the patterns I've seen, the member persona we have. So it's going to be different for every single community. Another tip, launch features slowly. This is something that I kind of had to learn the hard way, but I think it's easy to get swept up and very excited and be like, oh, I could do this and this and this. And what happens is you don't really do anything properly. So I would always advocate for quality over quantity, particularly in the early stages of your community. People often see, in fact, one of our members said recently, they were like, oh, I'm like planning some of this stuff for my community, and you have so much in here, it feels quite overwhelming. And I was like, yeah, but I started with like the simplest setup in the world. It's just that we're a year and a half old, so I've gradually added to it over time in a very sustainable way. And you're going to overwhelm your members if you pack too much in too early. It's going to actually be confusing for them. It sounds counterintuitive because everyone wants to like value stuff, but really start simple, start basic, and just have a few things that people love. And if you do this, you can actually spend more time planning and executing features properly, because these things do take planning. Like every failed feature I had, I either didn't validate it properly or I didn't actually put enough resource behind it. I just liked the idea, so I jumped in, and before I knew it, I was like, actually, I really haven't thought through what's involved in doing this to a high standard. Noah says an overwhelm is so different to each person's unique journey. 100%. So yeah, how do you make it manageable? Because you might be seeing this stuff and you're like, okay, it's exciting. I think my members would like some of this, but how can I do it? So to avoid feature burnout, plan your features and benefits carefully. So some tips for this: you should quantify the setup work involved and the ongoing work, because you will have both. So there's going to be like more work up front. You might have to build and set up some spaces and plan things out and structure it, but you're going to have ongoing work. So you're going to have to create something every single week. Presumably you're going to have some time that you need to carve out every week. If you do not block this into your calendar in advance, it's going to fail, right? The time has to come from somewhere. So I recommend, really think this through, overestimate how much time you need. So you might need to be like, I'm going to block out a whole weekend to set this up, or I'm going to take a day off work, or whatever it might be, block that time. And then ongoingly, it's like, I know that every Tuesday and every Thursday, I have a 1 hour live event on those days. And I know other days, when I have to go make something or template something or plan something, it's all in my calendar. So then make sure you're clear on the budget, time and effort required as well. So are you going to have to pay a designer for this? Are you going to have to integrate some third parties? Whatever it might be, you need to be super clear on what's actually involved. And then do an audit regularly. I genuinely do this like monthly now. I will be ruthless about cutting stuff. And to the extent, I don't think I've seen anyone like cut as ruthlessly as me, but this is just experience now, because I used to do the classic thing. I would just add and add and add and add, and I would never take away. And a previous business mentor had a great term for this. He said this is called Frankensteining, because if you keep bolting things on to your community, you're going to end up with a monster. And it's so true. What most people do is they don't think about it. They just have a cool idea. Cool, I'm going to launch that new event. Cool, I'm going to launch that weekly challenge. And before they know it, they're like, why am I super stressed? It's like, well, because you've added 25 features and benefits, and some are working and some aren't, but you've just kept all of them. So it's not good. So generally you should cut ruthlessly. I almost have a rule now where it's like, to introduce something new, I have to remove something else. And this can be really effective because if you do that, you're basically losing one of the weakest things and then introducing something new. And then remember, based on how it works out, you're either improving it or removing it. So try to, as I touched on, avoid overwhelming members by offering too much, and don't feature stuff from a place of insecurity. This is more of a mindset tip, but I've seen this so many times. People basically come to me in the community and they're like, I'm really scared my members won't find this valuable. I'm really scared my members are going to cancel. I'm scared I won't live up to my promises for my members. And the answer is, I'm going to put 500 articles into the community and 1,000 videos, and I'm just going to add and add and add more content and more features and more benefits, because I'm scared and I don't want to lose these people. That is not good. Remember, it's much better to have quality over quantity, to kind of deeply listen and understand your members, and to show up and try and serve them each day instead of just packing more stuff in and confusing everyone. And I think, just before I do a quick demo, I think that is what we've got time for. I have mentioned it before, but if you would like to learn more, I have a massive free book that I spent 3 months working on at communitymanual.com, which has got some great feedback. I'm very grateful to say. And now I want to show all of this in action, if I may, Emma, because I thought I personally prefer, learning from like reality, not just tips. So
Yeah,
all
wonderful.
right,
Go for it.
awesome. So bear with me. I need to make sure I actually have the right browser window open now. And thank you for the kind feedback, everyone. And now my internet's spinning, of course. All right, we are getting there. Cool. I can see Pedro in the house as well. And there's tons of people here since I started this workshop. So hey to everyone that's kind of joined throughout. All right, let me share my screen then. Can everyone see this, hopefully? Awesome. So welcome to the wonderful world of Learn Community. And I want you to look at this through the lens of these 4 pillars that I was just talking about, because we have obviously upcoming events, and you can see here we've got a community showcase. So this is an example where you're going to learn from someone else. You've got office hours. You're going to get the help that you need from someone. Ask a question. Of course, that's where people go and ask questions and get help with stuff. So you can see here as an example, people like, I'm relaunching, like, what do you think of this? Or like, value proposition, how do I clarify this? Or I'm planning a workshop, how do I do a integration? All this kind of stuff, right? It's very direct help. And then we got get community feedback. I'm not going to click into all of these because we'll be here all day, but people get feedback and reviews on their community. Monthly goals. Like, this has been so much fun because people literally share their goals in depth, and then you can get inspired by what other people are doing and like cheer them on and all this kind of stuff, which is awesome. Share and chat. This is where people can like share tips. So again, it's more of a learning space. The course we're working on, so that's going to be a learning space. And then we've got all of this learning here as well. So, workshops and guest experts and community showcase and the whole knowledge base going on there as well. And then we don't store the replays of the connection calls because they're like quite private and intimate and so on. So we don't record those. But you may start to see a balance as well. So I look at this and I think, okay, cool. We've got a ton of learning stuff, especially with the course coming soon. We also have quite a bit of, help. There's a lot of opportunities for help, whether it's in the forum or the live events and so on. But it's a personal goal of mine for this year to be like, we need more connection stuff. So it's like, we've got the connection calls and there's stuff that happens behind the scenes, but I'm going to be working on a space group that's all about connection because I believe in that so much. So when you start to understand these different buckets, it's like you can kind of see, where you may be lacking and where you may be excelling, and you can try and strike a nice balance in your features and benefits. And again, I will go through this on a pretty regular basis and be like, you know what, like that one isn't working, that needs a tweak, or I'm going to cut that, I'm going to introduce something new. So this has probably changed in a year and a half, like the combination here, like at least 20 times. and it's fine. It's organic, it's living, it's breathing, it's constantly evolving and improving. It is not getting perpetually bigger and busier, and it's not just sat there stagnant. It is something that is adapting based on the actual behavior of our members, which is pretty cool. And again, you can see the final thing I want to share, like when something works, you should totally lean into it. So let me just go back. Yeah, like I've been really happy with how it's going with this new series. And so you capture it, like get really, really good reviews from people, try and recycle them, get people, involved and like saying they enjoy it. Like all this stuff is great. Like when something works, it's like gold dust. Seize it, double down on it, do a better job. And equally, if it's not working, be ruthless, cut it out completely. That would be my tip. So I want to jump into some Q&A, but hopefully it's kind of helpful to see how some of this stuff can be structured and play out in real time. David says, will the slides be shared? I'm sure that I can send them to Emma if Emma's happy to share. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Tom, if you send those, I can upload them with the recording.
Awesome, will do. But yeah, I'm here to serve for the remaining time. Like any other questions? I know we've covered some as we've gone. I'd love to help, and hopefully that was a helpful workshop for you all. Amazing. Cool. Thank you, Susie. Appreciate it. Yeah, so do let me know and try and think like, in fact, I'm going to ask you a question. What is your current biggest like struggle, concern, blocker when it comes to the features and benefits of your community? Emma, would you like to field questions? Shall I'm very easy.
Yes, definitely. Clarence is asking if you can speak to the launch of community. Specifically, what is the easiest way to generate energy?
I would love some more clarity on that, Clarence. So, do you mean the actual logistics of getting the community live? Do you mean how to launch it with a bang and like, promote healthy engagement early on? Let me know. I just want to clarify before I jump in and answer.
In the meantime, we have a question here from Erica around how many features should we start with in a new community? I have a ton of ideas, but also don't want to be overwhelmed.
I'm a fan of going super minimal, to be honest. So I did this and I've helped many of our members do this. I think even like 3 works, like that minimal. And I see people building out 30 spaces from day one, and it's so much. I think with 3, and I'm glad 3's doable, Erica. I think with 3, or it could be 3 to 5 or whatever, you are making sure that you pick the 3 that you know people love the most. And it's the classic like 80-20 rule, if you've heard of that. So I guarantee there's going to be a few that people kind of care about, but like if you pick the ones that the majority of people really feel passionate about, and like that's ultimately the reason they're going to show up for the community and like keep paying for it if it's a key community, start there and then you can build out the supportive stuff over time.
Awesome. We have another question here around the best features for starting up new communities, which I think you sort of just spoke to. I don't know if you have anything you want to add on that, or we can move on.
Again, there's no one size fits all. So
Yeah.
if you haven't launched yet, do a lot of the research and the validation with your pre-launch. So with potential members, maybe you have a wait list or like a network or wherever your people you hope are going to become members live. Do the work up front to deeply understand them, because for some communities it might be like networking events, other communities it might be AMA calls or workshops or any other stuff from this workshop. It's going to be completely different. But I promise if you put the work and the listening in before you actually launch, you're going to make those early members so much happier than just like guessing and piling a bunch of stuff in there.
For sure. We have a question here from Susie around lack of participation and engagement. Susie, it might be helpful if you could share a little more info around where specifically you're seeing that lack of engagement, like what you've included in your offering and where you're not having the engagement that you had hoped for.
And I would
Um,
also say with engagement, it's always good to kind of frame it realistically, right? Because I feel like people get really down, and then when they actually tell me their engagement numbers, I'm like, you're doing just fine. Like maybe they're doing great. So, I love circle events, but how many people do we have here right now? Like 35. I know some people left after the presentation, but I think maybe it was like 50 people. Um, but there's 5,000 or something, right, in the circle community. And I think there's a lot of people that expect 20% of their members to show up every time they do a live event. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. Like people watch the replay, people have different time zones. This is super, super common, right? So if you do stuff particularly live, expect a tiny minority of your members generally to show up. But those are the people that want to be there. They're engaged. They're the people that like, live learning and participating and showing up on video. That isn't for everyone. So if you're worried about engagement, realize there's so much engagement that happens in different formats. And I've got a whole workshop in the video library and circle about engagement. Try and cater to everyone. Quick side tangent, but I call it the engagement ladder. So you cater for the people like you awesome folk who enjoy this live experience and are very active, but you also cater for the majority, which will be passive members, and that's through stuff like video libraries and knowledge bases and learning pathways where they can go through individually on their own time, and they're still engaged, but you just don't see it in the same way.
awesome. Chris is asking about, I think he's looking to make a move from having a free community to a paid community and wants to survey his 115 members to validate that idea. And he's asking, should I test this with them first? And in return, they get to stay free for 12 months in the community or some incentive like that? Or do I need a bigger group to survey?
So you might not want to hear my answer, and I promise I'm not like a crazy capitalist, but I think there's a few points to note. So generally, free members don't convert that well to paid members because they're two different types of people. It's the same way when I worked as a designer. It's very different trying to get a $50,000 client versus a $50 client, right? It's not going to be the same person, and you're not generally going to convert one to the other. So you will get some conversion rate. Some will want to stick around, but generally, if you want paid members, you want to go find some new people who are the type of person that's willing to invest and wants to invest in something like this. So that's point number one. I'm a huge believer in paid communities. I'm kind of semi pivoting my brand to like specifically help solopreneurs and small businesses because I think it's fine having like a free community or maybe a hobby community, if that's what you want to run. But I think a paid community is so much more sustainable. I think it lets you show up and serve your members consistently, and ultimately they're going to benefit more too. So given that, I would not be tempted if I were you to offer continued free membership for 12 months, because all that's going to happen is you're going to probably burn out because you're going to be showing up and serving those people and getting nothing in return for your time. You also will create a weird hierarchy because you're going to have people who are paying you and they're going to be seeking your help, and you're going to be over here helping free members and feeling bad about that, and it's going to feel imbalanced. So I know it's tough, but I would just have the honest conversation. I also wouldn't validate by asking, because if you ask a bunch of free people like, hey, do you want to pay for this, they'll be like, no, not really. But if you say, I'm taking this in this direction and here's why, it's because I want to do this full time or whatever it might be. I want to show up, I want to pour more resources, I want to make this more valuable than ever, and I have to pay, make it paid to justify that. So do you want to be part of this? A tiny minority will. You'll go find additional people who will too, and they go all in on helping those people as much as you can. And there will be a bunch of people who can't afford it or it's not for them, and that's fine. You can recommend other places, you can serve them through your free content. But I feel like a lot of people get stuck in this guilt trap, and then they end up like resentful and burnt out and bitter, and the whole thing falls apart despite their best intentions. So I want to help you avoid that.
It's a great response. Thanks, Tom. I love this question. Ree is asking if you are using Circle's chat feature, and do you recommend using something like that in real time?
I think it depends. And I'm always honest. So Emma, like I'm going to be honest about my perception of the
Please,
chat
yes, yeah.
feature. Um, I haven't found huge success with it, and I think I know why. I think it's because chat is best used in a synchronous way. And I think what often happens is circle communities are used in an asynchronous way. So people will come in, get something they need, come back, and it's beautiful for that. But what they're not doing is just like hanging out there throughout their entire day, like you would in like an old school chat room or something like that. And because of that, the chat becomes asynchronous and therefore doesn't work because you leave a message, no one's there to like immediately chat with you and have that exciting like real time conversation. So it may as well be an asynchronous space. So where I have found chat can work is either it's for like really light touch stuff where people wouldn't feel comfortable creating a post. So for example, in our coming soon course space, I made that a chat space because I can just give like quick informal updates. I don't want to be a full announcement. Be like, hey, what do you guys think? And a few people will let me know and so on. So it's kind of good for that. Something else I want to trial is make it more synchronous by having scheduled chat times because again, we don't have enough people that they're just going to be living in the chat room and there's always going to be someone in real time. But what we could do is have a live event like this and then be like, right, everyone to the chat room, we're going to continue this. And then you got a bunch of people chatting in real time and getting that benefit. But I think what a lot of circle users do is they set up a chat space and sit back and expect it to take off, and it just doesn't work because they don't have enough members online at the same time who happen to be in that space who have a clear reason for using it. You won't just set it up and it's going to work like magic, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think there is, a place and time for a chat space. And to that end, we are working on a post for, I think this month, where we kind of outline a couple different use cases for chat spaces just to share some ideas. So if you're
Cool.
interested in chat spaces, keep an eye out for that. But to Tom's point, I think there are some use cases where it's certainly better suited than others. Going back to Clarence's question, yes, about generating engagement early on. He says, right now we are offering one workshop a week with an assignment, which includes a short video and audio meditation to prompt reflection. We are thinking of doing a challenge, but want to keep it simple.
And I think was the original question around like how to get good
How
engagement from
to
that.
generate engagement, sparking engagement right after launch.
Cool. So um I think there's a few things. Like I quite like launching with a bang. So when we launched our community, we had a launch party and we got all the people on a call live like this before we opened the doors, which meant that right at the end of that call, I was like, right, I'm opening it right now. Like, go, 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 go leave an introduction post, like, go do this. And there was like a flurry and a burst of activity from day one, instead of me sending out an email and be like, hey, it's open, and people trickled in. So that was like a fun technique. But I think, Clarence, to the specifics of your question, if you have like an ongoing event that you're working into your schedule, then just a lot of behind the scenes manual work, which is inherently part of an early stage community. It's unscalable. You won't be able to do it perhaps in future at a much bigger scale, but early on it's so powerful. So I'm talking about like one-on-one conversations in DMs with every member, understanding their needs and then directing and hand holding them and guiding them to the appropriate thing. So if you are chatting with someone and they're like, I'm really struggling with this, and then you're saying, cool, I highly recommend this upcoming event which deals with exactly that, or this offers hours, and I guarantee I will work through and help you with that. What you can't do is just post an events calendar and sit back and hope people are going to register and attendance and engagement is going to be crazy. David Spinks talks about this actually. So it's kind of the life cycle of community. And stage one is the seed stage. You then have the growth stage, maturity phase, and so on. The seed stage is basically you're trying to get this thing off the ground, which is where on the surface level it feels a little bit quiet, but hopefully picks up steam. Behind the scenes, you as the community leader are working like a madman, spinning all the plates and like facilitating things and guiding people. And most people can't see that activity, but it's there. This is what most successful community builders do. And again, it's the stuff we don't see. But that behind the scenes frenetic work, you're driving that engagement. You're not hoping it will happen, you're driving it one person at a time. There's nothing wrong with that early on.
Cool. We have a question from Tammy around, do you have suggestions for pricing new communities?
Yes, don't underprice. So I'm going to elaborate on this, but this is like the big one. Our members talk about this all the time. I underpriced, by the way. So we all make this mistake. But most people's tendency is they way underprice, like unjustifiably so. I think it's fine to not make your community the most expensive it's ever going to be from day one. So my approach is I actually periodically increase the price every time it goes to like a next level of value. So we're going to go up $10 in our monthly fee when we release our course because I'm like, it's justified, right? This course is going to be insane and it's going to add so much value and it takes so much time. So every few months we will go up in price, which is fine. But what you don't want to do is say, I'm so scared. Normally it's from a place of fear. I'm so scared I'm not going to get any early members and I'm going to have crickets. I'm going to throw out the most ludicrously cheap price to try and sucker people in. And what ends up happening is you often will go on to present those members, particularly if it's a ongoing subscription. And I don't mean resent the people, I mean resent the price. Like you value and love those members, obviously, but you can resent the price where you see it showing up alongside like a more suitable price point, and you see it and go, damn, I wish I hadn't done that 2 years ago, and that person's still paying $4 a month for the community because back then I was more insecure and naive and so on. So that would be one part, but I think I actually posted I either did a workshop or posted a pricing guide. There's certainly one on my website. And there's a bunch of different considerations about how to price your community. I think, again, that's a whole workshop in itself, but invest the time to really think about this stuff. Don't just pick like a cheap price out of thin air and run with that. So some of the stuff I teach and talk about, especially in Learn community, is like how to think about your financial goals for your paid community, how to reverse engineer them into timeframes, projections, factor in churn, do the market research of what else is out there, look at your credibility in the market, look at the amount of demand you can drive up, like think how quick you want to hit your goals, like all this kind of stuff. You need to actually run the numbers. And again, I think what most people do is they don't do any of that groundwork. They skip over it and just say, oh, here's the cheap price out of fear. Please sign up. And that's where it's harmful.
I think we might have time for one more question. So I'll read off one here from Heather was asking, when you are testing something, how long do you devote to doing that test typically? Like, what is a suitable amount of time to run a test for?
You're going to hear me say this a lot, and I know we got some more workshops lined up as well, Emma. There is no one size fits all. So it would be very bad of me to turn around and say 3 weeks. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, 3 weeks. Okay, I guess that's how long I'm going to test for. So it depends. And for me, it generally comes down to gut feel. So I said before, I'm pretty ruthless about cutting stuff, like probably do it quicker than most people. And Heather, I want to get more specific here. So it depends how it plays out. There will be some things, like I say, where it's maybe it works well initially. So maybe it's 6 months later, and I'm like, this really isn't working anymore, and it doesn't sit right with me. There will be other stuff where almost immediately it's like crickets, and I'm like, damn, I wish I never did that. That completely bombed, and maybe I cut it like 3 weeks later because I'm like, I can already see it's not going to work out. Normally, it's something in the middle, right? So it's like it's kind of working, and then actually, yeah, like for me, I would say if it's something that's weekly, I now cut like 4 weeks in, maybe. Like I really don't hang around much. I don't want to be sitting on this thing for 3 to 6 months knowing it's not working. So if my gut's like this isn't working, I'm like, cool, tried it, it's gone. On to the next thing. I hope that helps.